Hi everyone, welcome to our very first workshop. And today we will be talking about the resume advantage. We all know resumes are the number one document that is required for us to find a job, but there's actually a lot of things going into this one piece of document. So today we'll be going through bit by bit in how to craft a professional resume. So grab a snack and sit back and relax. So to quickly introduce myself, I'm Rene. As you all know, I make YouTube videos for the JobSeer YouTube channel. If you're new, welcome to our channel. We're glad to see you here. And if you're not new, hello, it's me again. So a brief introduction of myself. I'm the content marketing growth specialist at Harcho, specifically for the JobSeer product. I was the community intern since the summer of 2019, and I was recently lucky enough to work with Harcho again after I graduated from Cal. I love to write articles, blogs, create fun content about AI, job searching, recruiting, lifestyle, and so forth. I handle the JobSeer content, and if you have any questions or suggestions for me, please don't hesitate to connect with me on LinkedIn. We'll also have a link to JobSeer down below in the description, so check it out if you would like. As for today, we have a special guest, Andrew. Andrew, will you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Hi, thanks so much, Rene. I'm so honored to be here and to be working with JobSeer and HireTool. I'm a recruiter of about 20 years plus, really founded an agency, spent most of my career in Fortune 100, Cisco Systems, Microsoft Corporation, a few others. And I've been really blessed to work with so many professionals and do a lot of hiring of top talent for some of these companies. And so ultimately, right now, I'm in a position where I want to offer what I can out to candidates looking for their next either job or step in career, and also, of course, collaborate with other recruiters to enhance their skills and mine. So again, I'm here to help out those in search right now, to help them with their resume. And I thank you so much, Rene, and for JobSeer to help me put my message out about resumes.
Thank you, Andrew. It is great to have you here to talk about resumes with us. So for today's agenda, we will begin to talk about what is resume and how is it defined it. Then we'll be talking about the design and structure of your resume, like how it looks and how we can make it look professional. Then we'll be moving on to talk about the resume walkthrough. It is basically about what you need in your resume and what are some things that you might want to take out. And lastly, we'll conclude our workshop by talking about how a resume, it's like your living document. So I'm going to pass the mic back to Andrew. And Andrew, please take it away.
Great. Thank you so much again, Rene. I really appreciate your time. So resume defined. Ultimately, if you look this up online, you'll see it's basically a refined expression of your professional and academic experience, that qualifies you for a job, et cetera. Hey, I want you to think about this differently. The resume that you put forward is essentially your representative. It's your representative at a meeting that you can't attend. That 6-second meeting with that recruiter or with the hiring manager who's looking at the content to quickly make a decision. Do they look deeper? To look deeper, do they call you? Do they invite you into interview, et cetera? So it's an important storytelling document. It is your key essentially to a new opportunity and connecting with other companies. So it's funny with all of this and how important it is. Most of us honestly wait until the last minute and don't really put forward what we believe is our best possible resume. So congratulations to you for coming here and getting some information to invest your time in making this resume, your resume, be the best it can be to represent you. Let me talk about some high-level design principles to start. Ultimately, I want you to hold this one statement as being your kind of ruler or your golden rule for your resume. That is, it's concise, it is consistent, and it's relevant. And when I say relevant, I mean powerfully relevant to the job you're applying to. Ultimately, if you can always use that phrase, ask it of yourself, that's how you can check and see if your resume is ready to go. Is it concise, consistent, and relevant? It has to be pleasant to the eye. Ultimately, when you look at the resume, and for the example, this Bob Smith example you see on the right, you can see that it's easy to look at. It's not too much text. There's white space. There's negative and positive space that gives the eye space and comfort, frankly. There's very limited tables. The only table you'll see there, and the only place I ever advise to ever have a table in a resume is putting the 2 columns for the skills. Ultimately, I want you to create that contrast. That is the positive and negative space, but also you'll see it's not all bullets. It's bullets and paragraphs. That is a contrast that enables you to make the most out of the bullets. We'll talk more about that in a second. In terms of page limit, there's really no arbitrary page limit. Ultimately, the guide rule is it concise, consistent, and relevant? If it is, and it's 4 pages, but it's concisely, powerfully relevant, then that's okay. But ultimately, I would say use that top rule as your guiding rule. In terms of the 10-year rule, in terms of ageism, that's a concern for some people, and otherwise just having irrelevant experience so long ago. I do agree with a lot of people who say that if your career is consistent, they're not going to hire you now for what you did 10 years ago and not recently. So honestly, though, it's up to you. If you have 20 years experience, you can put all 20 years. I'm not going to tell you a hard no, but it's up to you, and understand there is risk. There could be an uncovered bias, a hidden bias, and someone thinks that there's an ageism thing applied. It's up to you. I personally don't remove I keep most of my experience on there because it's all very relevant and powerful. And so I would always guide yourself with that concise and relevant concept, okay? If you want to talk more about it, you can reach out to me. Other formatting, I would say, as you can see on the resume on the right, it's full justified on the job content, underneath each job. And that's going to be the majority of your resume. And that creates a very comfortable visual versus having a rough right edge if you just left justify. So I would suggest for the job content, you full justify. And then, of course, whether you center your headers and your skills and your top name and address, or you left justify, it's up to you. That's a stylistic decision. So really make that up for yourself. I don't suggest you ever use the actual header and footer that you double click into on Word or other systems, because it actually is more complicated than needed, and it actually diminishes the view of that area. So just keep it as it is. Don't use the official header and footer. This is not a CV, it's a resume. So it's really not about your gender, your picture, your birth date. None of that should be on this resume, okay? So going with that, I just want to highlight a little bit more on bullets, because bullets are a most powerful part of the resume. It's a major differentiator in how relevant your resume is and how you express it. So they are an opportunity, and that's how I want you to think about it, to get attention. That's what bullets do, because they do attract the eye. When a human being looks at a resume, their eyes almost inadvertently will go to that bullet to view it. Ultimately, that's an opportunity for you. So that contrast is part of what controls the volume of the bullet. That is, if a page is all bullets, then really there's no reason to look at a bullet. It's not special. But when there's few bullets paired with paragraph of content, it creates now an importance. It's louder, if you will. The volume of that bullet is higher. And so again, they go to it. What does it say? You want it to be business value. You don't want it to be a description of what your work was. That can be in the paragraph. You want business value, impact, results, the stuff that your work resulted in. That's what you really want. And lead with the impact. More specifically, let me give you a basic formula for bullets. Essentially, an action verb plus quantified business impact plus the work you did to get that impact, right? So this is really a formula that I really coach people on, because too often people either don't include the actual business impact statement. They're either just describing their work on each bullet, or they perhaps put the impact at the end of the statement. But this is what I tell you. Put it like this: delivered, action verb, 10% increase of conversion rate. That's the impact. And if someone's hiring you for doing similar web work, bam, that's going to raise their eyebrows real quick, hold their attention, to have them read the rest of the sentence. And then it talks about how they did the work, work they did that resulted in that impact. So again, sometimes I'll see people without the impact at all, or describing their work and resulted in this impact. And now the person has to read the whole sentence to get down to that hook. But put the hook in front, it's more powerful, it's elegant, and it demonstrates your business acumen, that you understand that the work you're doing is all about the impact you deliver to the business. So let's see. We'll take this now and walk through the resume. Back up at the top of the resume, your name should be the biggest part of this resume. So I do suggest there are some variation of font size. The body should be one. Headers usually a little larger. and then your name should be the largest. It can be as large as the header, as you see on the bottom there, pretty close, or like you see on the top, substantially larger. It's fine. Try it yourself, different sizes, but do have your name stand out and be highly visible, bolded typically, and large. Ultimately, on your contact information, you don't want to have your full street address. You just want to have city, state. Street addresses should not be there. You definitely want to have your email, your phone, and then you want to have your LinkedIn. A note on your LinkedIn, you should have a updated LinkedIn URL that eliminates any coded numbers at the end of your URL. If you haven't done that yet, open up LinkedIn, click your image to go to your profile, view your profile. Up on the top right, you'll see an option to edit your URL. Do that to make a reasonable, non-randomized URL before you put it on your resume. Ultimately, if you're a creative, an artist, or a designer, and you want to have a portfolio link there, that's fine. Put that right there. And when recruiters or managers see this resume in soft version, they can actually click that link and go right to it, and you want that, right? Just make sure that that portfolio is ready for hiring authorities to see it, right? Make sure it's professionally set up and the relevant information is there, okay? And ultimately, the next step is a headline. This is what I call either, as you see from the top, a simple statement of what role it is you play and how you play it, or in what way you play it, or you see one down, a little more expanded description of here's what I am and how I roll, right? The way I do my work, what you will see behaviorally from me when I'm working for you, or simply variations of your title, as you see on the bottom. The point is, you don't want a paragraph here describing your life situation, what you're looking for next, or describing in a summary where you've been through your whole career, which is then also talked about down below. That's really a waste of space, because most recruiters and managers know the information that's in your job content, that's what they want. So don't waste a lot of time with a big paragraph up here. It takes space. It's irrelevant. Most relevant, put that little headline. The headline is connecting to what you've done, obviously. You can't say you're a process engineer if you haven't been a process engineer. But also, it should connect to the job you're applying to. So if you're applying to an applications engineer position, but you've been a process engineer, you could say process and applications engineer. They are close enough jobs. The content of your work goes into that work too. You can use this title to resemble both what you've done, but also what you're looking for. If you're making a total hard change, don't call yourself something you've never been in this headline. That wouldn't be the best way to go. That's one time I would talk about possibly an explanatory sentence, is if you're making a complete change in your career, okay? But that's an exception, and honestly, I would talk to a recruiter or even reach out to me about how to handle that. That's a very specific situation. But otherwise, just a headline up on top. As we move down, if in fact you're a new grad, recent grad, I'd say within 2 to 3 years, right? Your education might be the most important aspect of what you are bringing on your resume to qualify you for a job. Therefore, it's up on top. Just underneath your headline, you're going to put your education. And you could do that a few different ways. There are some formal ways to do it. You see more relevantly done in the top example with the bold of this degree in the school, the location not, and the years off on the right, the graduation years. Ultimately, as you see in the bottom example, you can do a little more context to your study, your focus if you'd like to, if it's relevant to the job you're applying to. And on GPA, only add GPA if you're at least over 3.5, okay? 3.6 or better. Otherwise, don't put your GPA on your resume. Moving down, right here, hold on one second, let me get this for you. So skills for most people is going to be their next piece of content after their headline. But if you're a recent grad, you'd have skills, headline, then of course your school, your education, now you're into your skills. And the skills can be represented a few different ways. Here's 2 major ways I've seen them, using the form to actually make it 2 columns. That's one way to do it. That's very common. And like you see on the bottom there, and honestly, try it with bullets and without bullets and bold, right? Try different ways and see what you think looks good for you. You don't need to have bullets, even if you have columns. As long as they're left justified and neat, that's going to be good enough visually to make it very clear. Or as you see in the upper example, people sometimes will break out the category of skills. That's fine. Either way, you want to raise up to the top of your resume the most relevant tools, technologies, skills, experience that you have that are going to relate to the job you're applying to. We'll talk later about tuning your resume, but for right now, any tools you know, any specific areas of function you're expert in, those are things you want to lift up to the top. I do sometimes see these either not existent, or I'll see them sometimes buried at the bottom of the resume. These need to be highlighted on top. So this is what I'm suggesting to you, is bring your skills up on top. Now we get down to your actual professional experience. So professional experience is the crux of your resume. I mean, with the exception of your first maybe 2-3 years, this is what your resume is really about, is your professional experience. And so really what you want to do, as I mentioned earlier a little bit with the contrast, is have in paragraph form the description of your role, how you would describe your work to a colleague or to a potential manager. What was your work you did? And you could go into depth, maybe I'd say 2 to 4 sentences. You can talk about your job was this, your scope was that, your work would break into 2 primary areas most of the time, this and that. These are different ways you can talk about your work. But ultimately, if in your bullets currently, you have work described but without impact, one option is to bring that into a paragraph and then, of course, refine that paragraph. Make sure it's tight, well-read, concise, stating what your work was. In your bullets, this is all about the impact, as we talked about with that formula, and you see examples here. This is about the impact you made to your to the work, to the company, from the work you were doing, right? So you want to have that work done, results from, very clear here, so that when someone opens your resume and comes to that first bullet, bam, they're so impressed with the work you did, right? That's really what I want to get you to do. This is the majority of most people's resume, especially if you're experienced. This takes time. So I will talk to you about this later, but don't judge too fast. Just try to improve this top down. Take your time evolving those statements from no value to value statement to quantified value statement. Just keep evolving your resume. It is a living document. We'll talk about that later. And then, of course, if you're not a new grad or early career, you're probably 3 or more years experience, especially if your experience is relevant to your path and what you're looking for next, then you're going to move your education down to the bottom, right? And so depending on whether you're left justifying, right justifying, how you're formatting, if you're underlining your headers or you're not, you're bolding, right? Just be consistent throughout your resume. And again, most people will have this at the bottom after about 3 years of professional experience. Really no big key here, except for, again, without the average, unless you have a GPA, unless you have a 3.5 or higher, really 3.6 or higher, I would say. And ultimately, just making sure you include the core information that you see here, right? The degree, the type of degree, the graduation date at a minimum. And the school, obviously. Yeah, some people might have at the bottom of the resume an additional experiences area. If you're a PhD candidate, this is where you're going to have your publications. You see a few examples here. This is your one opportunity on the resume to even include possibly a passion of yours. As you see on the 2 examples in the bottom, the soccer or sax, played at the Apollo, I guess, or see scuba certified on the left, right? So that's the little blips of personal side of your resume, if you will, outside of professional, that I think is acceptable in this level, right? Not a big paragraph, no detail, but ultimately you're also sharing some other keys that you're certified, that you're involved in associations, or again, you have the publications. You don't have to have this area at all. But if you do have certs or association memberships that are relevant to the job you're applying to, then of course, additional experiences is one way, or skills and interests. These are different ways to then put it at the bottom. And this would be after your education, down at the bottom of your resume, probably the last part of your resume. All right, well, with that, I know I'm flying through. Really, I want you to think about your resume as you're developing it or you're enhancing it as a master resume version. This is the version that will have all of the skills on top that you have, all of the tools, the technologies you've worked with, you're expert with, or very strong with, all of them listed on top. underneath each of the jobs, as you start to tune those job representations, the professional experience, and describe the work in paragraph, and then have bullets with relevant impact results, and you're working on tuning those, you can have all of the impact you can possibly list. In that job you've had for several years, you might have 5, 6, 7 bullets. That's great. As long as you can go along that formula I gave you and make powerful statements of impact, that's great. Now, that's your master resume. It may be 4 pages and not relevant to any particular one job you would apply to, but it has all of your experience, all of your results. That's what I coach my candidates to do. Keep working that master resume. Keep that as your living document that you evolve, and it continues to grow with you as you continue to work through your career. Then, of course, as you apply to a job, as you are going to get referred or a recruiter is going to take you to a job, you're going to make a job relevant resume. You're going to tune that resume. And that's what you're going to do. By tuning that resume, we mean removing irrelevant content. You're going to be taking off maybe really old jobs that are not relevant to this job you're looking at. You're going to remove some of the skills off the top that aren't highly relevant to the job you're looking for. You're also going to think, what other skills does this job ask for that I do have that I didn't list? And again, you may find that you forgot a skill that you do have. You did not list it yet. Go ahead and add that up on top, right? You're tuning your resume from top to bottom. You're not really removing all of the content that has nothing to do with this job, but you're getting close to it. You're getting to the point where all the skills are as relevant as possible, and you don't have very many extra skills up there at all. You're getting to the point where each of the jobs is tuned to make sure that the results, if you have 6 of them, choose the 3 that are most relevant to the results they're going to expect you to get at this job. The more powerfully relevant you can make your resume by removing irrelevant content, the more efficient it's going to be. The more assured you can be that when a recruiter or hiring manager looks at your resume, it's only going to take them seconds to find relevant content and be attracted to it and want to contact you. And that's really what you want, is tune that resume. Those are your application resumes. So in a folder on your desktop someplace, you're going to have one master resume, and you're going to have many application resumes potentially, right? That's the way it should look. Ultimately, provide some guidance on how to manage that living document, that master resume. And really one tip I give people all the time is, if you don't already do this, or if you're just starting your career, establish this process from the beginning. Have a monthly professional impact meeting on your calendar. This is something, it's an appointment that you hold yourself to, so that each month, and you could do this more frequently if your work has that frequent change in results, right? Maybe less frequently. But ultimately, about monthly, you should be sitting down and thinking to yourself, all right, what since the last meeting a month ago, what have I been focused on? What are the results of that focus? And you're going to find over time that you're going to learn to write down your statements, your impact statements, better and better over time. You're going to improve your skill in that. Ultimately, sometimes we do work that has results coming long after the work we do. Well, great. If you have this monthly meeting that you hold yourself to, this appointment, then you're going to be able to look back and say, great, I think 2 months ago, I still have impact pending on this item I did 2 months ago, but I'm thinking it wrapped up. Let me reach out to that project manager and get those numbers. So bam, now you can go to work while you're still at that company, right? And get the information and update that work, right? So that you have these full impact statements going on in this journal, or you could do it right on your resume. Really, honestly, with that professional impact meeting, I'd suggest you do it in a journal, like a OneNote or Evernote if you don't already journal, or have your own journal methodology. You can write it right on your resume, but ultimately you're going to find this is for more than just your resume. You want to document that business impact and really just take your time to improve that quality of content. Just over time, each month, you're going to get better and better. You're going to go back and you rephrase each statement, right? You're going to just hone this content until it's the best it can be. Ultimately, this is going to help you not just in making a really top-notch, highly competitive resume that gets the attention of the hiring authorities, but it's going to help you in your next one-on-ones, your review, your annual review. When you have it written down and in your mind, the business impact that you're making, quantified. A lot of people don't do that. You're going to be able to come to those meetings and talk about the change and impact you were able to make through your work and how you're ready for more challenge or looking for that next promotion or that raise, right? And this is something your manager is going to be impressed with if you're not already doing it. So I'd urge you to get that professional impact meeting or appointment on your own calendar and hold yourself to it. Ultimately, if you can take care of following these guidelines and getting what you can out of it, I do believe you're going to come out with a really top-notch resume. You do go through all this content and you take the time to try to make these edits in your resume, but you would like a review and or need additional help, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to try to help you out.
All right. Thank you so much, Andrew, for the workshop. If you guys have any questions about resume, if even you guys would like someone to look over it before you submit it to the job position that you're applying for, feel free to reach out to Andrew or me on LinkedIn. We're always here to help. As for JobSeer, try it out if you haven't already. It helps to narrow down your job search by giving you the most relevant and suitable jobs for you. So thank you again, Andrew, for being here and giving us all of these great information.
Well, thanks so much. This is something I give people every day when I'm working with them and coaching. And so I'm hoping this does help many more people than I can possibly reach directly. Thanks again to you, Rene, and to JobSeer and HireTool for the platform and making this happen for candidates.